Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Mile 17 podcast. I have with me today Darby. I know her as Darby Ball, but she actually got married. So it's Darby Ball. How do you pronounce your new last name?
Cerbo.
Cerbo. That's
Cerbo, yes.
Italian.
It's yes, Italian. I'm Italian now.
Yes.
So yeah. Yes, it's
Nice.
Italian.
I love it. So I know Darby. I actually, at the beginning of my nursing career, I worked with Darby in Mesa in the emergency department. So that's kind of how we know each other. It's been a few years now since I've lived in Arizona, but I love Darby's, honestly, your whole story. I just love watching like you on social media. And I think that you could really like inspire a lot of nurses to not just identify with being a nurse. And like you have so many hobbies and things outside of nursing, which is what I really love about what you do on your social media and just in like your life from like what I can see. So if you could just introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and what makes you Darby.
Yes. Okay. Hi. Like you said, my name is Darby. We used to work together back in the day, but I grew up in actually Mesa, Arizona. Ironically, I was born in the hospital that we both worked at. So I have not gone terribly far, but yeah, I grew up here in Arizona. I went to school in Mesa. Then I went on to ASU where I got my nursing degree. My first nursing job was working in the ER where we worked together that I still now am in 10 years later. But my whole life I've had lots of different hobbies, which I think is part of what like kind of makes me me. I grew up dancing, and so I've danced my entire life. And that's been a big part of my life. So I think it was my third year of being a nurse. I became an NFL cheerleader at the same time. And so I did nursing and NFL cheerleading.
Wow.
I've been an ER nurse for 10 years now. I've done some few other things on the side. And then I recently just got my nurse practitioner. So I will be
Woo, congrats.
Thanks. So September 1st, I will be transitioning to be a nurse practitioner. So
Oh,
that's,
really? Nice.
yes, I know.
Are
I'm
you
nervous.
doing like in the ED or are you doing like family NP? Like what are you doing exactly?
Yes, I'm doing ED. I'm switching, same system, but switching hospitals. But yeah, in the ED. So
Oh,
I'll be kind of,
you're not going to be at the same hospital anymore.
I know it's kind of weird. It's kind of sad. And I feel like I'll end up going back there. Like, I feel like a lot of people do that, but I want to start out somewhere else. So I am staying in the ER, same system, but just a different hospital. Yeah.
Nice. Was that like personal choice or did like was it so I mean I can imagine it'd be weird like being like with all your colleagues and all of a sudden now you're kind of like, like a step above and they're kind of reporting to you. Is that why or was it just because of like availability and that's just kind of how it worked?
No, that wasn't why. So I was offered a job at the hospital I'm
Where
at
you work?
now,
Yeah.
and that was something that I kind of had wanted to do. I think it'll be good for me to be with people that don't know me. I don't know them in the regard that like I want to be taught like a true novice. Like I want to be taught as someone that doesn't know anything because I think the people at the current place I'm at, I've worked with them for so many years. I think there's like assumptions that I would know all these
That
things
makes
that
sense. Yeah.
I just want to come as like a fresh slate and just teach me all the things. I don't think like the camaraderie with kind of reporting to nurses would be an issue, so to speak. More so, I just want to start somewhere where they treat me like a white piece of paper
Yeah.
and can just dump everything on me.
That does make sense
Kind
because
of,
I can see what you're saying, how it could be like you're working in this place that everybody knows you. So they just like you're saying, they would just assume that you know what you're doing. And it's like such a different role being like a
yes,
provider versus like being at the bedside. So I
yes,
think that's a really smart decision.
yes. I feel like that's what, and it's encouraging because I will be the first person to be like, I know I don't know a lot of things. There's definitely like with NP schools, there's a knowledge gap, and I want to be taught and I want to learn. And some people are like, "Oh, you already know, like you know everything," and I'm like, "No,
No, right.
no,
Speaking of NP school, this was something that you, if I remember correctly, you really took your time with this, right? Like you didn't go like and finish like in like a 2 year. Like you kind of just like took classes as you could. Like how many years did it take you to get your NP from when you started?
Yeah, so I did a 3-year program. So NAU does a part-time program because at the time when I had first started the program, I was still cheering. So I was working full-time in the ER. I had a couple other per diem jobs on top of my job in the ER, and I was still cheering. I was still cheering full-time. I was the captain of the team. I had a lot of things going on. I was planning a wedding. And so I did the 3-year program, which is like it was a, I want to say it's a traditional program, but like I followed the program route, but it was just 3 years as opposed to like two and a half.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
my problem was when I went to take my boards, I changed my last name legally. And on the board website, it's like, don't change your last name. It's going to slow down the process. And
You're
I
like
did.
whatever.
I was like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Plot twist, it is not fine. It takes a long time. So that delayed me taking my boards. So that
Okay.
kind of like added a nice extension, but it's
Gotcha.
fine. All's well.
Well, that's
Started.
good for people to know. Don't change your last name.
Your name. Yeah, when they say don't change, I was like, it'll make it easier for when I get all my licensures and like my DEA and my NPI and all these things to have my last name already squared away. So, I mean, at some point I would have to deal with it, but that probably
Yeah.
wasn't the best time to do it. But in any
Whatever.
event, it's
It
fine.
worked out. So
Yeah.
as far as nursing goes, was this always your plan? Did you always want to be a nurse like growing up, or did you just kind of fall into it? Because I know some people, honestly, me, like this was never like my like dream to like be a nurse. I kind of just like didn't know what else to do and just fell into it. And it's worked out so far. But did you always know this and specifically ER? Like, kind of talk to us about that.
So, growing up, my mom is a veterinarian. So, she's an emergency veterinarian. And this story sounds so silly, but I feel like it was kind of pivotal in my life. I think I was in like the fourth grade, and my mom came home with a pet tortoise, like this turtle, like this big, named Tilly. A owner had brought it into her clinic that was like a lot older. The owner had accidentally ran over the turtle and brought it to my mom's clinic. My mom does like cats, dogs, those types of animals. So a turtle is like not the type of thing that they really treat there.
Right.
So my mother got on like the local Google browser and looked up like how do you repair a turtle shell, because that's just not something that they do. They went to
Right.
the local Home Depot, they got some plexiglass, and they recreated Tilly's shell. Tilly got a feeding tube and they brought Tilly home, and my mom was like, this is your guys' project. Like, keep Tilly alive. Like, here's this turtle. Like, this is what we're doing. So we would do tube feedings with Tilly. We would start IVs in her armpit. We would
What?
do all kinds of things. I know. Yeah, that's how you rehydrate a turtle. Like, you literally put a needle in their armpit and just like squeeze a bag into them.
That is wild.
Yeah, the more you know.
Right.
And so Tilly was like our little project, and I got to like take care of something, and I realized it felt like really good to help care for something. Tilly is still alive to this day. This was literally when I was in like fourth grade. Yeah,
Wow.
Tilly's
Yeah, they live a long time.
Yes, yes, they live a very long time. I think Tilly's older than my parents are, but in any event, I knew I liked that. I also, another silly childhood story. I went to my mom's animal clinic a lot to visit her, and one time I saw her do a rectal exam on a dog, and I was like, "Mom, I will not be doing animal medicine because that is the grossest thing I've ever seen." Which is funny now doing on people,
Well, yeah.
but in any event. So I went to ASU originally with the thought that I wanted to do pre med. And I had some friends that were talking about nursing. And I honestly, like, it sounds so silly, but I don't think I really knew what a nurse did. Like, I
Mm.
truly don't think I had an understanding of the hospital system. And I kind of realized that I mean, you are the bedside person, but I didn't really realize that at the time. And so I had switched over to the nursing track. And I don't know if it was like this for your program where you go to these meetings and they're like, you probably won't get in, and no one gets in, you're going to wait
Right.
around. And so I was like, well, this is kind of intimidating, but I'll just go for it. And I ended up becoming a direct admission, which was a huge blessing. So I could
Nice.
just start. And um, so, yeah. So, in regards to the nurse, that was a really long winded way to answer that. But
No, that's
that,
great.
yes.
I love the context. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, there was something that happened that you were like you wanted to like nurture and take care of, something. And so like I feel like that's kind of how people fall into nursing is they're like, I like taking care of people. I like the way that it feels to help people who
Mhm.
need it. And then you just kind of fall into it. Is yeah, and as far as like our program, I mean, because I went to NAU and
Okay.
it was actually pretty hard to get into because I mean, if you think about Flagstaff doesn't have, I mean, it's small, it's a smaller
Mhm.
university. And so they only accepted 30 people to like the
Wow,
Flagstaff campus.
that's really small.
Yeah, and so I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna, like, get into this program." I honestly and to this day, I still will tell people because I was never, like, the smartest. I didn't have, like, the best grades. I had, like, okay grades, and, like, my entrance exam was, like, not great either, but
Yeah.
I think I'm convinced that these programs, like, have to have a certain percentage of males 'cause I don't know how else I would've gotten in, honestly. Like, it's
You
so
were that
competitive.
guy.
Yeah.
Thank goodness though, because you're a great nurse.
Well,
No, but
thank you.
that's true. That's a small portion
Yeah.
of people. Yeah.
You basically needed, like, close to a 4.0 GPA plus, like, killing the entrance exam, and like I said, like, mine were okay, it wasn't like it was terrible, but
Yeah.
I have no idea. I literally I didn't get in the first time, then I applied again, and I remember I was, like, at a party, I was wasted, honestly, and I, like, got the email, I'm, like, crying, I'm like, "Oh my god, I got in."
I did it.
But
I
but,
didn't have to take that entrance exam, which
Oh,
thank
really?
Lord above, no. I somehow, like, ASU at the time had direct admissions where, like, if your GPA was high enough, they would just, like, here you go.
Oh, so you
But
were
I
sneaky.
yeah. No, what I'm saying is, like, I don't know how I would have done on that. Like, I've heard from people that it was like,
It's hard.
it's not, it's the T's, right?
Well, there's different each college has, like, different ones. I had to
Okay.
take mine was, Kaplan, I think is what I took.
Oh, okay. But people were like, that thing was hard, which
Yeah.
I'm fine. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
glad I
they're
passed you.
difficult.
Yes.
I think I had, like, told you or, brought this up to you once before and you didn't remember, but one of my, like, most fond memories in the ER was, like, when I had a patient that was coding, and I don't know if you remember this, but I remember
I'm
this, like,
scared.
vividly, but it's because I remember this so well because it was, like, my first code, like, it would make sense to you, it's just, like, another day, but I remember I was in this room and we were in, I mean, we don't have to identify the hospital, but like we're in the intake area, so you kind of know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, I looked on the monitor that this patient's heart rate was like 30, and I was like, oh, that wasn't like that before. And I went in there, and she was like unconscious, and so I had like on the Volt or on the Vocera had called out like I needed help, and you were the Zoomer that day. And for people listening, like the Zoomers, like the resource nurse, like just kind of helping put out fires everywhere. And so you were the first person to the door, and I was just standing there, and you're like, you should probably start compressions. And that was like, I was like, did my first code, like, and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do. And I
That's
just remember that like so specifically.
so I'm no, but that's so true. I feel like of everything. Like the first time you see something, it's like it's a shocking, yeah, it's a shocking moment. And like that, like you knew you should do, you know what I mean? But when
Right,
you see something for the first time, you're just like, oh
right.
boy.
And
Yeah.
it was, I mean, it
Totally.
was like it was like seconds. Like it wasn't like I was standing there for
Oh
like minutes,
no,
just like
I don't
staring.
think
But
you were. I don't think you were. But that's
well,
fine. You should probably start compression.
I was like,
That
yeah,
sounds like something I would say.
yeah, that's probably a good idea. And so kinda on that topic, like, what do you like, do you, precept a lot of, like, new grads, and, like, what do you like, what kind of message do you give to, like, new nurses that are coming into the field? Because I think especially now, it's like, there's so much, online that we can see too about how terrible nursing is and, like, burnout and just, like, there's so many things, and I think that, like, people are valid, and, like, I get that way too, like, people are valid for how they feel and, like, their specific experiences. I just think it's really difficult for like new grads coming into the profession to like just hear all this like negativity and these nurses that are just like hating their lives, because I'm like, what kind of message are we sending? And like, how would you feel if like you're in this position of like you're so excited to start this new job, but everybody around you like hates what they're doing? So like, what do you do for like new nurses that are coming in?
Yeah, and I can remember when I had accepted that job in the ER that we both worked in. I was a nursing student and they hired me as a nursing student. And I remember being there and like sitting at the nurse's station and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this place is terrible. This policy is horrible. The system is horrible. The ER, the patient, like everything." And I was sitting there and I was like, "Don't like felt so vulnerable in a way that I was like, "Don't you want to like try and paint like a little bit better?" I don't know, but I remember so vividly people being, even back then, so negative about the nursing space, which I was
Right,
really, really, really surprised by. I honestly, and I feel lucky to feel this way, but I have like the complete opposite perspective of nursing, like truly. And I know it sounds cheesy, but like I absolutely love being a nurse. Like I love being a nurse. And I think there's a few reasons why like I've been successful in that realm and we can get to that. But in regards to for new nurses, truly, 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 my biggest advice is start somewhere that you want to work. I
right,
know back in the day, it used to be like, you have to work on med surg or you need to
right,
go to XYZ place. I don't think that's necessarily true. You're going to have to, everywhere you go is going to have challenges. And I
right,
think you have to find somewhere you're passionate about. Otherwise, you're going to eventually get to that setting and you're going to hate being a nurse. Like if you don't, and med surg is great for some people. And don't get me wrong, like that's a great unit too. But say you wanted to work in ER and you work in med surg and you hate working in med surg, you spend a year in med surg, and now you're just bitter at nursing because
right.
you hated it. And so
Mhm.
I think you kind of set yourself up for failure not going for what you want in nursing. Um, and two, I think work life balance is absolutely everything. It is, to me, that is
You have
everything.
to
And
have
I
it.
think that's, yes, I think that's why I've loved being a nurse because it's not been my only identity. And so I can
Right,
find so many other outlets and other things than just thinking about the hospital and just thinking about like the terrible things I've seen or the really stressful days. And two, I also think having coworkers and like friendships in the ER, I think is so helpful.
So helpful.
Yes, and I had precepted someone, um, and they had worked in the ER for like a year and seemed really unhappy. And my biggest advice, I was like, you need to just like talk to people, like talk
Right.
to your coworkers, joke around with people, like look up from the computer and like just get to know people because it'll make your life so much more enjoyable.
Right.
And he had worked there for another like 2, 3 years. And he had said like that was one of the most like pivotal things for me is getting to know my coworkers and like I hate to say, I think other nurses would understand this, but I hate to say like finding light because I know for patients and their families, it's like the worst day of their life. But as an ER nurse, especially, you have to cope with things. I think like finding humor throughout the day and like
Right.
silly, funny things like with your coworkers is really what
It's
like
huge.
makes you not just like rot. Yes.
Right, and I
So,
mean, like, that's, like you're exactly right, and I still tell people to say it's so funny, I literally had somebody from the hospital we worked at together, like, text me today that I hadn't heard from in forever, and she was just, like, saying, like, "Hey, like, I've been seeing you on TikTok," and things like that,
oh,
I've always said this, like, where we worked, like, I've not ever found that before, like, I think that that hospital specifically had I mean, I know people, like, come and go, but, like, when I was there, I just remember just like how comfortable it was and like the people were amazing. But what I think is because it's a very difficult place to work, just because of like the volume and like it is. It's just a hard like you see a lot of really sick patients there, and you have to have that camaraderie with people, or else you're gonna drown. It's like you have to like I think the hardest part for me was like finding the balance from like not totally disassociating from like what's going on and like keeping like some like humanity and emotion in there like for the patients, but like also
yeah.
protecting yourself because it's like I'm sure that you've had, cases working in trauma and whatnot to where like you just can't help but like that humanity just comes out of you and like maybe afterward you like lose it or like you go home and like, wow, that was like really hard to deal with. But if we did that every single day, like that's so taxing on like us as humans to like carry that. And I think that's where in like my career I have found like the most burnout is when like I'm taking all that stuff home with me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I could not agree more, especially like in the setting of ER and trauma. Yeah, you're totally right there.
What do you do for things, like, as far as, like, self-care and, like, taking care of yourself outside of work? I know you said you like to, like, keep your hobbies, and I've seen, like, on your social medias, like, your DIY, like, it's like I'm like, I could never do things like that. It's just, like, so amazing, like, what you do, it really is. So what are ways that you kinda keep, like, your identity not just as a nurse and, like, taking care of yourself?
Yeah, I think like the best way that I do take care of myself as a nurse and just as a person is by having so many other things. And so my husband and I, we travel all the time. We're always going on trips. And so it kind of gives you something like fun to look forward to. I like to spend a lot of time with my family. I have a niece and nephew that I love spending time with. I work out every single day. And for me, that is like huge. And not for the aspect of like, the physic like looking a certain type of way, like it really is like instrumental to just like me feeling good and moving my body and just kind of staying healthy in that way. I also, like we briefly touched on, I was an NFL cheerleader, and so I had that to focus on. I love, love, love arts and crafts, and like you said, the DIY types of things. Like I love making things and creating things, and just being creative has always been a huge outlet for me. And so and then I also, I do some social media stuff too. So I think it's just other areas for me to focus on. Um, I know self care, like to a lot of people, is like a day at the nail salon and things like that, which I love. Like, don't
Right.
like that is my thing. But I think something that's important for me is like consistent day to day, like constant self care, which to me is just kind of identifying in a million different areas and kind of doing like all in one, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like doing those things like you're saying, like working out and, like, taking care of your body first and foremost, um, it's huge, and I mean, I can totally relate to you on that, and I again, when I've honestly, since I've moved to Boston, I've had a lot of struggles with burning out because I when I moved out here, I started travel nursing, and I think one of the issues is I started making, like, more money than I had ever made, and so that when that money is, like, being dangled in front of your face, like, it's so enticing, and so then, like, I just got into this like terrible habit of just like picking up so much like so much overtime, and in turn, like I started to see really negative effects in my relationship and my fitness and my just my overall health and just like how I felt every day. That like many times I've had to get to a point to where I'm like, what am I doing? Like this, like if you're making all this money, like what's the trade-off? Like, is it really worth like feeling this terrible all the time? And I think it's another thing that nurses have to be careful of is because the hospitals they need help. So the only way to get help is to dangle money in front of people's faces, and so it's so hard not to like okay, like I'll just like negate all my needs and just go pick up shifts to make extra money.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely, absolutely, yeah, correct. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's trying to find some kind of balance and not burn myself out that's been like a big challenge. But I mean, that's as nurses, I feel like you just have those times in your career, and you just have to find what works for you. So I thank you for sharing like all of that because I think it's helpful for people to see like how other nurses, especially you've been a nurse for 10 years, has been able to like kind of find their groove and be like, find that balance of this is what I'm going to do when I'm off. This is what I'm doing when I'm in work mode. And that's just like super, super helpful. And so as far as you've talked about this cheerleading a lot, and I'm so interested to hear how did you get into, did you cheer in college? Like how does one become an NFL cheerleader? Because I know from my understanding, it can't be like it's not like this like huge like money pit that people fall into that they get paid like a ton of money from my understanding.
Yeah.
So, like, how did you like fall into it? And, or I guess if you didn't fall into it, like, how do you get to become an NFL cheerleader?
Yeah. So I grew up my entire life dancing, and that's what I did. And when you say NFL cheerleader, most teams, especially the Cardinals where I cheered, are dancers. So I spent my whole life dancing. I went to ASU. I got a partial, so I had an academic and a dance scholarship, and so I had to do something with dance. So I ended up minoring in dance, which was not like I wasn't on the dance team or anything like that. I knew I wanted to do the nursing program. So I did the nursing program and I kept taking classes. I worked for a professional dance company where we would work at different events doing performances and things like that. So I knew I wanted to keep those skills and things up. And NFL cheerleading was always my end goal. It was something that I really wanted to do. I worked for the Arizona Coyotes out here, which is the hockey team, and they had like a smaller kind of dance, more promo type of thing that they did. And so I was on that while I was in nursing school in my first couple years as a nurse. And it was really important to me that before I went and auditioned for a team that I was really, really comfortable and confident in who I was as a nurse before I put something else on my plate, because I didn't want to be like a 50-50 type of person. And
Right.
so I had worked as a nurse. I want to say it was for 3 years. And then I auditioned for the Cardinals, and I was really lucky to have made it my first year. So yeah, it was something that I knew I wanted to audition for. So I kept in shape. I kept taking dance classes. I had worked for that company. I had been working in professional sports. I also worked for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I knew the sports world. And yeah, and then I just auditioned, and I was super lucky to, yeah, have made it my first season. And then I cheered for 5 years after that.
So it's not something that you have to like. It's not something that you like have to go to college, like be a cheerleader, and then like these teams will like scout you to come be on there, like for like the cheer squad or whatever for the team.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it's a lot different once you get into the professional world. Like for instance, in college, like a lot of people like you're on your high school dance team and then immediately like you're going to different colleges and doing all of that. Where in the professional world, people are coming from all walks of life. So yes, there's a ton of people that are coming from college that just finished their college dance team, but then there's also people that are coming from the NBA. There's people that took a few years off. There's people that became a mom. Like there's just people from all walks of life that just kept up with those types of things and audition. I think that's part of what I really loved about the Cardinals specifically, was that the women were in all different phases of life, which was just like a team basically full of role models in different ways, which I really liked.
I love that. Did you guys travel or was it just home games?
So when you're cheering, you're just doing home games unless it's international. So if it's a Cardinals home game, it's just the Cardinals cheerleaders. If it's a Seahawks home game, it's just the Seahawks girls that like would
Okay.
be out there. I shouldn't say girls and boys that are out there cheering. Um, And so, yeah, we just did home games. I did do a lot of traveling for other things with the Cardinals. Like I went to London and Hawaii and Alaska and
Nice.
Mexico and all these different places. But the only game that was like an international one that we did was London.
Oh, okay. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, that's still like
That
super
makes it
cool.
sound, yeah, only London. No, I guess more to speak to, like, we don't travel to, like, every away game like
Yeah.
the players do. Yeah.
Nice, which I mean is probably, I mean, a good thing because it sounds like it would also be exhausting a lot to like add on to your life. And unless also like if they were to go to the Super Bowl, which the Cardinals did, but was that before you were on the team?
For me. Yeah, that was for me.
Because
I know.
okay, that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a while ago. I think I was in high school
Okay.
maybe
I was like, you're
still,
not
but
that old then.
yeah. No. So, yeah, it was a while ago, but we would go if we were in the Super Bowl or things like that, you do go, of course, to those games and such, but we never
Yeah.
quite got there while I was on the team, so
Darn. I mean, do you get like when you're on the cheer squad, do you get to interact a lot with like the football team as well? Or is it more like are you guys like pretty separated and I know that they're super busy too, but is there any like integration or
So it's all completely separated, and every organization is different. I would say most kind of do what the Cardinals do, but every team is very different. Where we're completely separated. There's no fraternizing, anything like that. That's not something that happens. We do community appearances with them. So say I was going to a school to read books during Dr. Seuss week. I would go with another cheerleader, and there would probably be a player there who would read books with us. And like, of course, you're friendly and talking to them, but it's also very professional, like they're a colleague, and then you're not talking to them again after that. So you'll do things with them and you'll interact, but they're not my friend or
yeah,
anything like that.
I
Yeah.
got you. I see that you still do things with the organization. Like, are you working just on like, are you still working for like the Cardinals, or does it more like volunteer things that you do, or are you not even doing it anymore?
Yeah, so I'm still working with the Cardinals. I do a lot of, well, I do their game day, so helping with game day operations and game day entertainment and some of the behind the heat scenes things. For cheerleaders, and just game day entertainment in general, there are so many things that go on during the game that fans would otherwise not know of, which is kind of the whole beauty of it, is that it looks so easy and things are just kind of flowing, but there's a lot of things that happen on the back end too. And so I've been doing that with game day. I just did their auditions with them and helping with their social media and things like that. So I'm involved in ways like that. So I'm still working with the team, but not going to practice every day or anything like that. Just home games and kind of other things, other big things for them, like auditions and things like that.
So they're still keeping you pretty busy then.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
still doing things, but it's so fun, and I feel so passionate about that organization because it was just like such a wonderful period of growth for me, and so
Yeah.
I love them, and so I'm always like so happy to be there. Yeah.
Well, what an experience to I mean, not many people can say that they've gotten to do something like that, and, I mean, I feel like it's just, like, an amazing outlet, like we were kinda talking about from nursing to, like, have this other hobby or whatever you wanna call it or job that you were able to do, so I wanted to kind of pull up this video for everybody to see, and I want you to talk about it here. So so the your wedding, the video on TikTok. So this is Darby, and are these all your teammates here? Well, I mean, not all, but like are all these people dancing here with you, or like they were all on the cheer squad as
Yeah.
well?
Yep.
Yeah, this is
Yep.
this is like this stuff is amazing to me. This, and then also let me pull up the other video of this you guys walking out.
The t-shirt toss.
I love this. So talk to us about your wedding because this, and if anybody wants to see the full video, you have to go look at Darby's TikTok. But talk to us about the wedding and how that kind of came about.
Oh, the wedding. Our wedding was so fun. So it's kind of a tradition with our team specifically and a lot of other NFL cheer teams. Like I know the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders always do Thunderstruck, which I know people are like really into right now with their Netflix show that just came out, but
Right.
it's something that our team has always done too. And so, yeah, I want to say there were 28 girls that were on my I think there was 28 people in that video that were coming to our wedding. We got married in Colorado, so they were all traveling to Colorado. We had one little rehearsal at a dance studio in Arizona, and that was the only time
One.
we rehearsed it. One. We had
Wow.
one
Wow.
rehearsal.
Professional.
Yeah, professionals were like, we got this. Everyone will be fine. Yeah, we had one practice and like a video that we did like on the phone that was like, this is what you'll be doing, just like learn this and this is where you'll stand, just
Yeah.
but that's just like we were all so accustomed to. Like a lot of times we would learn a dance on our phone and then come to practice and they'd be like, okay, like we're doing it and you
Right.
needed to know your stuff. So yeah, we had one rehearsal and then brought the poms and just went out and did it. Like they were all the girls were back behind like our venue and I was on the other side. So I didn't get to like practice with them or
Yeah.
anything, like do a little like marking beforehand. It was just like, and here we go.
I love
So
it.
yeah, that was fun. And like the dress, my husband had, I think he probably knew that we were going to do a dance because it's like people
How do
always
you
do.
know?
But
Yeah.
I don't think any, actually, no, none of the weddings we had ever been to had like the bride ever changed. And so I think he was definitely surprised that I like changed the outfit for a quick little
Yeah.
minute. But yeah, it was really fun. And then the t-shirt toss thing, I've worked in professional sports for such a long time. Sam came out here and played baseball at ASU and other colleges in Delaware and Arizona. And so it just was like a fun, light, like sports thing. The song in the
It's so fun.
background was like a very like Italian, like dun 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 dun. Dun, dun. So Sam spent so much time. Sam's my husband.
Yeah.
Spent so much time like mixing the song, so like the beat hit at the right time, like when like which was it was just fun. So it was just like
It
silly, yeah.
it looks your wedding looked like it was, like, such a fun time, and
It
yeah,
was so fun.
it's so beautiful, and your husband's he's from, like, close to New York City, right? You guys are always out in the city or New Jersey?
Yes, yep, he's from
Yeah.
Jersey. Yes, he's a true New Jersey Italian boy. So, yes, he's from Jersey. We're going back next week. Yeah,
Oh, really nice.
New Jersey. And
How do you like exploring, like I love New York City. I don't know what it is about it. I mean, me and, like, my husband have, like, talked about it because it was one of the places that we almost had moved to, but I think that I'm thankful that we moved to Boston, and I feel like New York City is more of, like, a place to, like, go visit and then go home.
yes, oh, 100%. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of stimuli that I would, yeah,
I
I
love it.
agree with you there. But
Yeah.
I love New York City. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I love it. I love Broadway. I love all the
Oh my
shows.
gosh. Yeah.
Like it just like fuels something in my soul where I feel so happy. It sounds so,
Same.
but it's true. And like I grew up when I was younger, I would go to New York City and I would take dance classes and I would do intensives and things like that. So it has like a very nostalgic feel to
Yeah.
it and it's fun like going with someone that's from out there and like the things that he likes to do and the food and the people and the culture and like the chaoticness of it is fun. So I love
It is. It's like it's so fun. And like what you said about Broadway, the first Broadway show I watched was last year, and we went to Moulin Rouge, which was like
so good.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
good.
And afterwards, I was like, okay, this is my first one. How am I going to top this? And I don't think I have yet. I mean, I've seen other
Yes.
ones, and they've been really good, but Moulin
Mhm.
Rouge still to this, I'm like, that was like the best show I've ever
Oh,
seen.
unmatched. I've seen many Broadways. Moulin Rouge is like
Uh,
it. Yes, so so good. I'm glad that's the one you saw because
yeah,
that's been my favorite Broadway. But
yeah,
yeah,
it
you
was our
did
first. Yeah.
start high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we set the bar high, and it's nice. I
Yes.
mean, being in Boston, like we're so close. Like we can. I have driven before, and it's like a little bit like of a headache because it's just traffic. But like the Amtrak, it's just like so easy to hop on and go down there. Or if we want to fly, we can be there in like literally like 40 minutes, and it's oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's the best. Yeah,
That's
I
super
love
nice.
going down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So so as far as mile 17 goes, I like to kind of round out the episode by people talking about like the whole emphasis the impetus of the show was mile 17 of the Boston Marathon that I was running. And it was just like a really difficult time for me to get through. It was like I had just seen my husband, I had just seen my sister and friends that were there. And then I realized, like, oh shit, I still have like 9 miles to go. This is going to be terrible. And I was like, I was in so much pain. I just wanted to like lay down and be done. And so, like, it's where the show was inspired just because I was like, it's just a good metaphor for life for people to kind of use as far as a moment in time. Like, we all have like so many of these moments. In our lives that we had to just like really push through. And like once we got to the other side, we were like, okay, like I can do this. And you just kind of prove to yourself that you can get through these things. So do you have a moment? It could be like a day, it could be a year, it could be a decade, whatever, like that you can kind of like think back to in your life that you really just like dug deep and had to like get to the other side. And then once you got there, you looked back and you're like, wow, like I'm just like so proud of myself.
Yeah. I think to kind of I feel there's been a couple of different those moments throughout my life, but sort of to stay on theme with the whole nursing thing. When I went to nursing school, I mean, I was a baby when I became a nurse. I had just turned 21. So I was, which felt really, really young at the time. And it was. And when I was in nursing school, I was also working full time. I was on the executive board for my sorority, which, if you're not familiar with the Greek system, I just had a leader position within my sorority. I was also in charge of their housing. And I also really, really, really wanted to have a social life. I also was working for the Coyotes. And so I had so many things going on at one time that I was very, very, very stressed out, is just the honest answer to it. And I will never forget when I went to it was my med surge rotation. I had an instructor that, I don't know if you ever had one of these, like an instructor that just was not supportive in any way. And like I would
Mhm.
see her and I would immediately get anxiety and like I would like feel like I was going to throw up. And I am just, I mean, I am not an anxious person at all, but that drew out like the worst anxiety I've ever had.
Mhm.
And I will never forget, I was at another hospital within the system that we worked at, the one downtown.
Mhm.
And I was on my med surge rotation, and she pulled me from the rotation and like sat me down and was like, "So, how are you liking the whole nursing thing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm really loving it. Like, it's been great. I'm excited. I'm not exactly sure what area I want to go into, but I've really been enjoying it." And just to give some context, I got straight A's all of nursing school. I always had a 4.0. I had a 4.0
Mhm.
in my bachelor's degree. I had it in my master's degree. And that's not to like brag, but just to give some context to
Right.
why I thought this was just so inappropriate. And she had told me that she was like, "Well, I'm just not really sure I can see you as a nurse. I see you more as someone
Oh.
that would just be like," she described it as a pretty girl that dances and,
Oh my
you'll
god. Right.
get married, and I just don't see you in this profession. And this was someone that in a way I looked up to because she had been a nurse for like 50 years and
Right.
she was my professor. And I was horrified because I was like, where are you drawing this from? Like, I am getting great grades. I really cared a lot about nursing school. I cared a
Right.
ton. And I just felt like it felt so defeating because I had put so much effort into doing 9 million things at one time to try and fulfill different areas of my life. And I truly was pouring everything into it that I was just so defeated. And what a thing to say to someone.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's like, honestly, if I think about like the scheme of my life, like horrible things people have said to me that stands out. And like I can literally remember she gave me graham crackers and was like, "Let's chat." And I was like,
Right.
"What's going on here?" Um, and then was like, "So do you really think you like want to finish the nursing program?" And
What? Like
it
an
just was like
instructor?
this huge, shocking, like horribly offensive thing that she had said to me. And while I was very offended and confused, it also kind of like drove me to like do a really, really, really good job and to like in a way prove her wrong. And I don't know why that was just such a pivotal thing to me, but it was something that I was like, I'm gonna get through nursing school, I'm gonna do a great job, and I'm gonna be a great nurse. And like that's not true. And like if anything, I wanted to prove to her and just like I think an overall message in general that like you can be more than one thing at once. Like I
Right.
could be a dancer and also a nurse. And like I took that into being an NFL cheerleader and a nurse. And like it could be with like that with anything in life. Like you can be an artist and a nurse, or a mom and a nurse, or a painter, or a piano player, or whatever. But like something doesn't define you, like a hobby or something. If anything,
Right.
it has only added to my life. And so I think that was something that like really was like kind of a tough time, but also a transformative time of like I can do that at the same
Right.
time, I guess, in a way. Um,
I'm
and
just
it
wondering, like, why, like, what motivated, like, an instructor, especially, like, to say that? Was it, like, your physical appearance? Was that something that she had picked up on, like, what you were doing as a student? Because it's, like, especially during that time, like, even if she felt that way, like, you're a student. Like, that's the whole point of being
yeah,
a student is to, like,
yeah.
learn and grow, and, yeah, you don't say those things to people who are, like,
No,
showing
you
up and, like,
don't. No,
trying hard.
no,
So that's
you don't say those things. I think there was another girl that was in my program. It was one of my really good friends. She was on the dance team at ASU, and she got kind of similar things to her. And
mhm,
I'm not really sure what it was. She had said to me that she was like, when I was in college, I had done gymnastics and things like that. But like I'm more someone that like wants to, like really work, like just be at the best. And I just never,
Wow.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it, yeah, I don't know what it was. And that's, I think, why I was so shocked because I, I know I care about patients. Like I know that
Right.
it was something that I was meant to do. And so I was like very, I
Taken
felt in a
aback.
way
Yeah.
like I was being
Yeah.
like profiled. It sounds like that's a big word to say, but I kind of felt that way at the
Yeah.
time. And she was
Have
like,
you like, sorry, have you had, like, has this been, like, a common misconception of people, like, when you tell them, like, "Oh, I'm a cheerleader," like, have people ever, like, given you those messages, like, like, 'cause in movies, like, cheerleaders are,
yes,
construed as, like, the dumb blondes, like, have you gotten those, like, kind of, like, misconceptions before?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I think people definitely, like when I was cheering, people always showed like so much respect towards us. I think it was more so like a shock factor because for our team specifically, every girl on the team has to have a full-time career, or be a full-time student or a full-time caregiver. Like every girl on the team is that. And so people had amazing professions. They're teachers, they're nurses, they're speech language pathologists, they're engineers. There's people that had worked for like high companies, they're in law, they're doing all these different things. And I think that was a shock to people, but
Right.
in a good way,
Just
I
so
think.
right, so weird that
Yeah,
people even,
there's,
like, have that, like, thought, like, "Oh, like, since
yeah,
you're here dancing, cheering, that, like, you can't be something else," and I think that's, like, kinda what we were talking about earlier, like, I love how you were, like, saying, like, not to tie your identity to just, like, being a nurse and just being a cheerleader, like, you have, like, this wide variety of, like, what makes you Darby, like, you're not just a nurse, like, it's something nursing is something that you do, and, like, I've made kinda, like, episodes around this topic of, like, if it may be something that you would grieve, but if, like, for whatever reason, like, nursing was ripped from your grasp, it's like, okay, that may be a grieving process, you might have to get through that, but it's not you. So it's not like it doesn't define like who you are at your core. Like, just from what I know of you and seeing anything on your social media or just knowing you in person, it's like, family is like huge to you. You're kind, you're so smart. Like I remember working with you, like I was always like very comfortable going to you with help because I was very new, like in the ER. It's so scary. Like when you get there and you're like, oh my God, like I came from med surge. And so the contrast between going from med surge to the ER is so vastly different. And
yes,
again, like you were saying, like nothing against med surge. Like even I think even if some ER nurses went up to med surge, they'd be shocked. Like it's just different. And I
totally.
just I just remember like so I hope that you always know that. Like you're very comforting and like nurturing to new people that are coming in and especially in a place that like maybe not everybody was. So I do appreciate that from you.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. That's very, very sweet. I truly like, and in this like for social media, like I just want to shed a positive light on nursing because I truly to my core think it's an amazing profession. And also too, I know there's a lot of things that go around that's like softcore nursing. I don't, do you know what I'm talking about when I say that? Like softcore
Yeah.
nursing. Yeah. Like
Like the soft
softcore nursing.
era or
Yeah, is
something.
where it's
Yeah.
at. And I think that's great for a lot of people. Like that is wonderful. And there is so many amazing things within like the soft era of nursing. But to not discourage people, especially like new grads or nursing students that are on TikTok or Instagram, because they are, to
Right.
think, oh gosh, like if I did have this dream to work in the hospital, well, that's terrible. And it's gonna, because to me it's not. Like I think
Right.
there's a lot of components to things, but I think if that's what you want to do, to just do it because for me it's been nothing but like amazing and I've grown and learned so much working in the ER and ICU and just different places. So just to shed, and it sounds so cheesy, but just to shed like a more positive light on nursing because I love it. I really
Right.
do. So
Which I think is refreshing for people to hear because like I said, I've even gotten to points where I'm like feeling bitter about like what I do. And it's like when you get in those moments, you have to remind yourself like one, why you're there. And if you are, every something I've realized just through traveling is not every facility is equal. I mean, you can work somewhere and love what you do in the ER, and then if you went to a different facility in the ER, you may hate it. And it's just maybe their system and maybe just the people that you don't really like jive with. Like so
mhm.
many different factors that make a department what it is. Um, and so I think that that's something that I always have to remember. And I mean, I've gotten to a point too, which I like to remind nurses is like you don't have to do just one thing. Like as far as the ER goes, like I'm doing that per diem now. I have another job, doing kind of like IVs and like a med spa. And then I have like another job that's like what they're calling like this soft nursing as well. That's like more in like a office style setting to where like I have these three different nursing jobs that I can kind of cycle through that I'm not feeling so burnt out from one.
Yes, absolutely. And too, like I've definitely gone through my phases where I'm like you get like worn out in some ways, and that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that like I don't love it. And that's true with anything in life. Like literally even really great things like
Right.
in
Anything.
careers, like you go through these phases. But yeah, I too, like I worked in a surgeon's office. I that whole situation I was talking about earlier with my professor, I ended up being a professor at that school because I wanted people to have like good experiences in nursing school because it's scary. You go into a lot of times like huddle, like, and I would never want someone to feel this way where like you go into huddle as a nursing student and they're like, who wants the nursing student? And it's like
Mhm.
crickets and you feel so
I know.
awkward. Like being a nursing student can be so
Oh my
just like
god.
it's so
Yeah,
awkward. Like
it
I,
is.
I physically had like I got hives and rashes for the first time in my entire life when I was in nursing school because I was just like I was so uncozy. Like I was just so, and I
It's
just like,
nerve-wracking, yeah.
it's so nerve wracking and like you feel stupid sometimes and it's just like not a comfortable thing. And I didn't want that for anyone. So yeah, but like to kind of your point, like I went and I was a professor and like just doing all these different like nursing jobs. I too did like an IV education thing. And two, if you find something like doing a little like niche job that you love a million times more, that's great. Like go do that. Like that's
Right,
the hospital's not for everyone. An
right,
outside patient thing's not for everyone. And when you find somewhere, I think that's like the beauty of being a nurse is like trying different, you're literally never trapped. Like you are never,
right,
ever, ever trapped. Like go somewhere else, like make yourself happy.
right, and I think, yeah, I think a
Yeah,
lot like, things that I've heard from, like, nurses that are, like, scared to, like, leave, like, if you're an ER nurse, if you're an ICU nurse, like, you have this, like, I think it is an ego thing of, like, if it's just not your thing and you're like, I want to get out of the hospital," like, these nurses feel like they're not a real nurse at that point, and it's like, "No, like, it's
no, you
not
should.
for everybody, it's just not," like, and
Yes.
if at the end of the day and if you've given it I think it's true to, like, give things a good 6 months to a year because you do need to
Me
settle in,
too.
it's always gonna be miserable at first, but if you're at that point, like, if you've been somewhere for, like, 6 months and you're like, I literally hate this," like, why? Like, why keep making yourself so miserable? I did that here. I went to the ICU and I was like, "Oh my god, I literally cannot do this." I was there for 6 months and I was like, "I'm out. I'm going back to the ER, like, this is
Yeah. I
not
did
for
that
me."
too. I went up to the ICU for a little bit and I was like, this is not my vibe. It's just
No.
not. Yeah. And I think you are totally hit the nail on the head with that. Like if you just got to find where you're happy. But I think too, especially like the personality type that does ER and ICU, like it is kind of like it is like an ego thing in a way.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean, a nurse is, in my opinion, a nurse is a nurse. Like you can be a
right,
nurse on your computer doing insurance, and that's amazing. You can be a nurse doing injectables, and that's amazing. An IV clinic, like you're at the end of the day, you're still helping people, and like whatever
right,
your route is to do that, I think is great. I
right,
think I just more so like because of where my experiences is from is to just shed light on like hospitals are great too, which I think
right.
a lot of people are like the place is terrible, and for some
Yeah,
people it is, but like I don't
yeah,
know, just to encourage people to try it out if it's something you wanted to. You don't have to.
right. Yeah,
There's so many places you can
yeah.
go,
Exactly,
but
and that's it, just give it a try at the end, and it's like, I
right?
think
Or don't
the
give it a
only
try.
or
Whatever
don't
you
I
or
mean,
don't.
I think the only thing that I would add to, like, especially, like, new grad nurses is if you are going to make the decision to not get, like, a job in a hospital right off the bat, it does make it more difficult to, like, 2 years down the road if you've been working just in, like, in, like, an outpatient setting to, like if you're trying to now go into the hospital, I feel like it would make it a lot harder to, like,
Yeah.
learn the hospital system and, like, pick those
Mhm.
things back out of your brain that you had learned in school just because 'cause you've been removed from it for so long, but if you are in the hospital, you give it a try, you can't stand it, and then you kinda transition out, like, you already probably know you're not gonna wanna go back, so that's the only thing I would really add
I
on to that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's like an added layer of a challenge for sure. Like if you do
Right.
go that way. Yeah.
Right. Well, Darby, thank you so much for getting on and shedding your light and your knowledge with everybody and talking to us kind of about your life and being so gracious to share your journey through cheerleading and nursing and just your life. And I'll for everybody watching or listening, like I will make sure to put all of Darby's socials in the comments that you can kind of follow her because she's amazing to follow. If you're looking for anything literally DIY, nursing stuff, and just like lifestyle things. I was literally watching some of your TikToks today, and like just like the ones where you were like trying like the pop, is it poppy, the soda, and
Poppy,
just like
yes.
yeah. I'm like I love these because just like things that you would just not really see otherwise. And I love your platform, what you stand for, and just thank you for being a light in the nursing world and not being so bitter. So,
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you for having me, Colton. I'm so proud of you. You do so many cool things and you're just so fun. And I like love seeing all the things that you're doing. And I think your podcast is really good. I listen to so
thanks.
many episodes, so many of your episodes. So I really
Thank
enjoy
you.
your podcast and I think you're doing a really good job. So
Thanks.
I wish you
I'm
would
trying.
come back to us in Arizona though.